Hi, this is Charles Deering, where I talk funny, but we all scroll seriously. This is season 1, episode 6. Can't believe I've lasted this long. I'm just going to go right into it. We're going to do roll call. We got a full room, and I love to see that. Right now we have 0 viewers because we just started the show. But first on my list, you're gonna see him listed as Dylan, but his name is Dustin Connors. And Dustin, why don't you tell everybody how they can find you on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all that other crap?
You can find me on Facebook on Country Scroller, just spell it country and then scroller. I don't do Twitter. I do YouTube, obviously, as Country Scroller, and that's all the social media I do. So that's it.
Alrighty. Now, folks, I recommend if you want to learn to do inlay on a scroll saw. I cannot believe this guy does not have more subscribers. Dustin does an excellent job with inlay on a scroll saw, and I'm too scared to try it, but I need to try it. But anyway, thank you very much, Dylan. Next we have the fella from Mexico, Hans Bierman. Please don't forget to unmute yourself and tell us all about you as if the viewers haven't heard from you.
My name is Hans Bierman, and I live in Mexico. I've been scrolling since I was 8 years old, and that's a long time ago. You can find me on Facebook, and otherwise I don't want to be found. That's why I'm in Mexico.
See, I understand. Okay. Sorry. I had a frog in my throat. Now we have Mr. John Cousins. He's known for his smiles. And hey, don't forget to unmute yourself and tell us where we can find you if we want to stalk you.
If I'm available on Facebook on John Cousins, COSENS. I also have a scrolling page, Would If I Could.
Good deal. Thank you very much for the introduction. Next we have the old regular John Schaffner, a.k.a. Santa Claus. Tell us what you did after you got home from that sleigh ride.
I had a beer.
Just tell us about you.
John Schaffner, Central New York. I do not have anything as far as YouTube or Twitter or nothing. I just have my Facebook under John Schaffner. I've been woodworking for 40 plus years, and I just come out here to hang out and get a good laugh.
And that'll do it. Yeah, I either cause nausea or laughter when people see me. Mr. Kelly Kicklighter, don't forget to unmute yourself. Tell everybody about you, where they can find you.
Yes, I live right outside of Tampa, Florida. I have a laser engraving business, just trying to get into some more woodworking. And it's just kind of a hobby of mine since I got out of high school. I don't have a business page or anything. I just have my personal Facebook page.
Alrighty, and obviously a Google Plus as well. And
Yeah.
that you must probably get a decent amount of business of that laser stuff, because there's a lot of possibilities with that.
A lot of possibility. I really only have one customer right now. I do some glass engraving for them. So, in fact, I got to get an order for them later when we're done here.
That's a good deal. I'm glad to hear that. Next we have Mr. Mark Stallings, the sweetest member of the group. And I say that with a little bit of sarcasm because of off-air stuff. But yeah, I'm going to shut up and let Mark Stallings introduce himself.
You better be careful, Charlie. You're treading on thin ice there.
You just is watching.
My name is Mark Stallings. You can find me on Facebook at Mark Stallings. You can also find my page, Spiritual Splinters. I also created a free website. If anybody wants any information on how to do that, let me know. It's spiritualsplinters.webs.com. Other than that, just hanging out with you guys, trying to get a good laugh. Pick on Charlie.
There you have it. The secret comes out. Okay, Mr. Ron Lynn is next in line, but he's having technical difficulties, so he will do any comments and or questions in the chat area. Ron Lynn, Sterling, Colorado, newbie on Facebook. Lynn with two L's, two N's, I believe, unless he mistyped his own name because I wrote down one N. But anyway, alrighty then. Now we have my lovely co-host, Russ Clarity.
Hi, how you doing tonight?
I'm breathing, and that's probably more than most people want. But go ahead.
Russ Clarity. I live in Central Florida, actually Mulberry, Florida. I'm a third-generation carpenter. You can reach me on Facebook at Simply Wooden Creations, and I also have my website is www.simplywoodencreations.com. I've been scrolling for over 30 years.
I don't know when Hans said when he started scrolling, I didn't even know they made scroll saws back then. What is it, like pedal powered gerbils and stuff? But sorry, Hans, you don't have to answer to that because I gotta go.
The year I started scrolling, the early 1980s. Matter of fact, I have some stuff from my originally when I was scrolling.
I started. Are you talking, Hans?
I started in 1958.
Ooh, wow. That was the year I was born.
Not to make you feel old or anything. Okay, I'm going to move on over Mr. Sterling Davis. He was doing the pallet challenge, but if you went too slow, you missed the deadline. It was December 24th. He's going to announce Wednesday morning, which is December 31st, and we're all going to cross our fingers that Charles Deering wins. But other than Charles Deering, Sterling, tell everybody all about you.
That's all up to the randomizer, Charles. It's not.
I know. I've been trying.
I'm Sterling Davis. I have a YouTube channel, Sterling Davis. I have a Facebook page, Sterling's Woodcrafts. Also on Twitter and Pinterest, mainly just to get my information out there and get my stuff out there. I do want to give a shout out to the Country Scroll Sawer, though. I just came across his channel, and he has got some phenomenal work on his channel. I hate I missed it. I've only been scrolling for about 6 months, but it's my solitude, and I appreciate all the Scroll Saw YouTubers because it just really helps me learn, and Scroll Saw is my passion. So Steve Good, obviously, is a big influence. Charles. And you know, the Country Scroll Saw, I'm real impressed with their work.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, Dustin, I'm really surprised does not have a much bigger following, but we're gonna fix on that. Everybody go to Country Scroller on YouTube and subscribe, by golly, or I won't let you watch any more of my videos. That's a terrible punishment, I realize, but okay, I'm going to stop attempting to be funny. Our first topic is going to be what your best sellers tend to be, if you get any. I don't really get any, so I can't tell you what my best sellers are, so I'm going to move in order like we did before. The first person on the list is Mr. Dustin Connors.
Well, I don't really go to any shows or anything. I usually do something around Christmas time, but I mostly have sold some portraits and stuff. I also have an Etsy account, so I've sold a few portraits on there, but that's about it. So.
All right. Do you find that a certain time of year gets you sales better than another? I mean, Christmas could be an obvious choice, but is there a time of year that you tend to do better than?
Not really. I mean, well, this whole year's been sort of crappy as far as having time in the shop, but I mostly just sell stuff online on Etsy. I've only sold a couple things, but I have to make some stuff so I can sell it.
Alrighty, I appreciate you answering that. And next in line we have Mr. Hans Bierman. Let us know what your best sellers are and best time of year for your sales, if not Christmas.
I don't sell any, Charlie, so it's pretty easy. I give all my stuff away. Just give it away.
Well, alrighty then. I'm glad I wasn't shooting for long conversation there. Mr. John Cousins, what are your best sellers and what is your best time of year, sir?
Best sellers, I'd say, would be portraits and floral patterns in Mother's Day time.
That makes sense. So that would be the time of year is Christmas do anything for you?
Christmas is pretty slow. I'm basically doing a lot of bigger projects though, like my chairs and the wooden toy box that I'm building right now. But
Alright.
I have to say, like pretty much Mother's Day and Easter is my bigger sellers than anything else.
Well, that makes sense. I think also the subject matter of what we like to cut will also determine what sells and when it sells. I tend to cut what I like, and that's my problem. I need to start gearing things towards the common. Sorry, I'm about to burp, and I'm trying to prevent that. Okay, Mr. John Schaffner, what sells best for you, if you get any, and what time of year do you do best at?
Well, unfortunately, my best sellers had nothing to do with scroll saws. I sell these mason jar candy dispensers. But as far as scroll work goes, like John said, Easter, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, those are really pretty decent for me. I make these little signs and, you know, be my Valentine and all that stuff, and they actually sell pretty good for me. So, but Christmas time, blah.
Yeah, last year I rolled them in, but this year I think I got one order, and that's not to make light of the person that ordered from me. I appreciate it.
I had 5 whole orders this year.
Well, that's not terrible, I guess. It depends on what you're making. If you get 50 cents a piece, you know, it might buy somebody a pack of cigarettes. All right, Mr. Kelly Kickletter, what bestsellers and what time of year do you do best at?
With just getting into scroll sawing, back into it, I should say. So I don't have any business there. My other business with the engraving is pretty much all year. So he sends me about it once every week and a half. I get an order for about 10 pieces of glass.
Wow, that sounds pretty steady. That's pretty darn good. Before I go to you, Mark, we have somebody in the comments or the submitting questions that come in from the viewership. It says, I also make ink pens, bottle stoppers, ice cream scoops, pizza cutters, all hand turned on a wood lathe. Christmas season from October to the first part of December is the best time for me. Thank you very much, Matt. Mr. Mark Stallings, I know you said you've only been scrolling about 2 months, but I'm guessing crosses is what works best for you, but I'll let you answer.
Well, believe it or not, a lot of what I did this year was geared towards kids for Christmas. Did a lot of dump trucks, scrolled their names, chained it up underneath it. You can see all that on my Facebook page and my web page, you know, those things. And those went over head over heels, and they were really simple to cut. You just got to have a wife like mine that'll paint them and know she won't paint for all of you guys, you know, unless you pay her commission. But yeah, but I mean, I really did pretty decent for this being my first Christmas doing it. I probably had somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 55 orders.
Wow, that's awesome. I just, if anybody cares, we have 25 viewers and just dropped to 24 because I started talking. That's probably why. But I just submitted, I believe, 30 to 40 cross designs to all the scroll saw pattern catalogs out there. I'm really hoping they'll put those in there. So, baby needs new shoes, even though I don't have a baby. Ron, if you don't mind typing in the chat section what your answer is as to bestsellers and time of year, I'm going to run on over to Mr. Russell Clarity, and then I'll get to you, Mac, and then you, Sterling.
My bestsellers are religious items, crosses, and really there's not a particular time. They usually sell pretty well all year long. Do very few shows during the year. Things for some reason down here in Florida, they don't seem to sell as well at shows, so I don't do a lot of them. And even at the shows, once again, religious items and crosses in particular sell quite well.
Good deal. Yeah, I think the smaller items, see, crosses have a way of being elegant, simplistic but elegant, and obviously the meaning behind them. And there are a lot of people that collect crosses, so I think that's why they do so well. And That's why I designed so bloody many. I just need to start actually cutting them. And I don't have a question from Mac, but Mac says, hi again, Charles made it back. Glad to have you back, Mr. Mac. Mr. Sterling Davis, what are your best sellers and what best time of year?
Well, I'm like Hans. I don't sell anything. I give everything I do away. This is more of a solitude, like I said. It's more just for my fun and enjoying the woodworking. So I don't really sell. But I think if I were to get into it, I would imagine, obviously Christmas I think would be a big holiday. I think Easter would be a big holiday. My work that I do on the scroll saw is religious based. I am a man of faith, so it would be religious based. So I can't say what it would be. That's what I would make and offer to sell if I did.
I appreciate your feedback, and I think with all of us, our personalities play into it. I spend a lot of time trying to be funny, but in my own admission, I think the fact, and I'm trying to be serious here, but I am always bummed out about being broke, and I'm afraid that shows through when I'm trying to make a sale. And I think some people will feed off of that and try to just talk me down and down and down until I just get desperate and give it away. But I wish I could just give it away, but unfortunately I need the money. I'm not money hungry by any means, but I just want to succeed at it. Russ, do we have anything coming from YouTube yet?
Not at this time.
10-4. Okay, I have Dangerwood Dan. Okay, I'll get to Ron in just a second. He wrote something in the chat section. We have Dan Ingebretson says, I'm a brand new woodworker and just acquired a bunch of equipment, and I've been watching YouTube videos on every channel. I can find my comment. My comment is you guys were right last week. The Harbor Freight scroll saw, especially with blade adapter, is crap, worthless. But I am proud to say Mark Stallings got a new one, so Steve Good can no longer get on to him. So thank you for your comment, Dan. Okay, Mr. Ron Lynn wrote in the chat section, said, I'm just learning how to use my saw. It's an RBI Hawk. I repurpose and craft items to give away. Very, very admirable. I admire you guys that give your stuff away because I used to, but then I got to thinking, I got to bring some money in this household, and that didn't work. But luckily my wife still loves me for now. God, I'm so low on topics because of the holiday weekend.
Hey, Charlie.
Yeah, who's saying that, Mark?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I noticed on Sterling's videos, he also uses that Harbor Freight vibration machine. When you get something better, Sterling, be careful. I mean, this thing is day and night difference.
I'm enjoying what I have, but I am looking forward to upgrading because I know they are better. Definitely, I know. But just learning, I think it's a good learning tool to learn the basic fundamentals of scroll sawing. But they are better machines out there.
Yeah, and they say if it's not broke, don't fix it. People have their opinions, but if it's working for you, and it looks like so far it's been working for Sterling, so more power to you. I got really lucky getting the saw I had, but I'm getting notifications on my phone that people are writing from the thing, but it's not showing up in the Q&A. But I don't want to go away from the screen because that'll detract from everything. God, we're barely into the show, and I'm running out of topics already. Jim Coogan wrote, I just started to start a new business this year after giving away hundreds of items every year. Every season works for me, especially when you give it away, but I started a business to buy new tools. And I think we can all relate to tools being toys. Okay, now this one is going to depend a lot on the viewers, but the panel is welcome to chime in, and just whenever you start to talk, raise your hand because sometimes all your voices sound the same. What kind of tutorials would y'all like to see put on this show? What would appeal to you? as a an on-air tutorial. And if you want to answer that, raise your hand and I'll unmute, or I'll put the camera on you and we can. Okay, this is one of those cricket moments where nobody raises their hand. So, luckily, somebody, Gary Griffiths wrote, Charlie, you might need to explain how to get to the Q&A. I had an issue finding it. I thought it was going to be at the chat once the link to watch opens, but it's not. It's in the box in the top right that looks like the side of a Rubik's Cube. I had no idea. I thought it was on the viewing page of the link that I sent, so I'm screwed. So I'm going to repeat that for anybody that's having trouble. They say it is, once the link to watch opens, it's the box that looks like the right side of a Rubik's Cube. Hopefully that makes sense to somebody, but thank you, Gary, for bringing that to my attention. I will try to work on that, but I've never been on the non-on-air part, so I don't know what all that looks like. Matt V8 says, I'm also new to scroll sawing. I found an, oh wait, I already, no, that's not the same one. I found an RVI Hawk on Craigslist. I did research on how much one of these units costs. Found that even to drive 6 hours to get it, I still save money for what the seller wanted. I love those kind of deals. I think we all do. Okay, so not one of y'all has any feedback for what you'd like to see a tutorial on air?
Do an inlay video.
Well, I think you just volunteered yourself, Mr. Dustin, because I don't have a freaking clue how to do it.
I want to see Charlie do straight blades.
Well, that'll be a comedy video. No, Dustin, are you willing to do an on-air inlay video?
On air, like do it right now?
Not the second. No, I'll give you more prep time than this. Like maybe a week when there's not a special guest, like a big name, blah blah blah, out there. Would you be willing to do one on air? Because I'm looking for future show ideas, and I think I love the idea of doing inlay with a scroll saw. With it, I know that has something to do with the angle of the table, thickness of the blade, and all that. But I would love to see it done. I don't know how everybody else feels. But would you be willing to do that on one of the shows?
Sure. Right now I'm using the webcam on my computer, so it's crappy quality, but I can just angle it down to the scroll saw and work that way, but sure.
Sounds good. I appreciate that, and I'll talk to you behind the scenes about it. Does anybody, okay, we got like 7-8 fellas here. Does anybody have anything that you don't know about scroll sawing that you would like to know? Now, my Russell is sitting right here, raising his hand like a good little man.
I've raised it like 3 or 4 times.
I'm sorry, I got so many thumbnails I gotta.
I'd like to see a little bit more of a tutorial on you changing. I know that you trace your photos, but after you trace it, what you do with it? Do you take it into your computer and manipulate it? In other words.
Okay, I have a. I'm sorry, I'm about to sneeze again. I tried to mute it, but my hand vibrated when I sneezed. Oh God. Okay, Saul Sterling type something. Sterling wants more on basic pattern design, so I think between me, Russ, and anybody else's designs, we can cover that. We need more prep time because of what it takes to do all this stuff. I got to go back to the Q&A. We had 2 more things in there. Thank you for the viewers that are sending things. Okay, Gary says, see if this makes more sense. He's talking about asking questions. They're watching the live video on the Google Hangouts. Look in the top right. They will see the box. There is 9 smaller boxes. Clicking that will open the Q&A chat. Hopefully that helps somebody. And thank you for that, Gary. I need to, God, I got a whole mess of them I got to go through here. And this one might work for you, Russ. Jim Coogan says a great tutorial would be how to create a pattern on Inkscape or any other software, converting a picture to a pattern. I do mine on paper, so that's the angle I'd be doing it from. And Russ does that, okay, I got to do some
That
serious.
that can be done. That wouldn't be that hard to do. We can do it on like we did the last time. I did the thing on the screen of my computer. I can show people how to do a basic pattern.
Alrighty, appreciate that. I got a slew of questions, and this never happens, so I'm trying to not to repeat anything. Okay, I just did Gary's one, and I appreciate you trying to help Gary. Matt VH says, Charlie, try to find some of the tutorials on the videos you had last week with the pictures and using the photo programs. Agree with Jim Coogan. You just don't want to delete my whole rant here. Okay. I'm not sure how to respond to that. Even though we have videos out there, I think sometimes people learn, would like to see it being done on live on the show as well. Robert Reiki, a friend of mine, it has never been on the show, says, how about a bunch of random uses, like cutting out letters in preparation for routing out of sign? And that's what I've got going on for my next video. Good to hear that. I'd like to see that. But yes, prepping for a bigger woodworking project. And on that topic, I think why a lot of woodworkers don't get into scroll sawing is because I think scroll sawing is more of a decorating tool. You can build things with a scroll saw, but in my opinion, I think a lot of woodworkers don't jump towards that because you can build more with other tools and sort of dress it up with a scroll saw. So that's just my opinion. If anybody has a difference of opinion on that, just feel free to chime in.
Well, I'd like to elaborate a little bit on what I wrote on the basic pattern design. It's talking about new scroll saw artists. They don't have the programs that like people that's been doing it for years have. And what I have on my computer is Notepad and Paint and the basic programs in a computer. Is there a way to do patterns on that to where to print out like the words inside of a word? Those are really nice scroll saw patterns. Can you get that done with basic computer programs?
Well, before Russ answers that, because I know Russ has the answer, I know Inkscape.org and GIMP.org are both free patterns, free programs. Absolutely free, and I know you can't do anything in Notepad. Paint is like the bottom of the barrel of graphics programs, but GIMP, GIMP.org, and Inkscape.org, both of those are free to download, and I'm going to let Russ go from here because he knows all the technical stuff.
Only a couple of them that I can think of, and I don't even think they're free. I know people are doing it in like Microsoft Word. They're making some patterns for the wood art. Office, I'm trying to think of the name of it. There's a free program out there for Office, like Microsoft Office, and it has a WordPad or WordPerfect in it that will also do some of your basic patterns for wood art. Those are the only two, but other than Inkscape and GIMP, I think you're going to be very limited to what you can do with any of the other programs.
Yeah, unfortunately, use all my sound effects here. He's right. I think Inkscape and GIMP are the only free ones. But you were talking about words within words, like Sheila Landry and Keith Benton have been doing.
Yes.
I'm doing mine in Paint Shop Pro, but I'm not sure how I would make a tutorial out of that. I will try to answer your question for that, but I can't answer much now because it's more of a visual, but that gives me an idea for a future video, so I'm going to write that down, so forgive the silence. But I have to give credit to Keith Benton and Sheila Landry for the idea. That's why I don't sell my designs, I just sell the finished pieces.
It's Open Office is the other program I was looking for that's the suite like Microsoft has out, but it's a free, Open Office is free for everyone. I'd have to look up to where you can find it in, but I'm sure if you put in open office in Google that you would be able to come across it. But from what I understand, and I've never even tried it on those programs, to be honest with you, it's not user friendly to create word art with those word programs.
I remember the very old Microsoft Word had an actual word art tab on it, and you could do all kinds of neat effects with Microsoft Word, and I hate that I can't find that anymore unless you go back to like Windows 98 or something. Alan Carter says he would love to see how people do their portraits. There again, it would be another visual. Do you mean, Alan, do you mean cuttings or patterns or both? And Robert Rickey says, I remember seeing a series of videos on how to use GIMP to turn a picture into a portrait, but I think it was 4 hours long or so. So it depends on how much patience you have. Ron Lynn wants to know where he can get. Dang it! It disappeared before I could read it all. Let me get back over there. I'm really organized, I swear. Ron Lynn wanted to know where can I get patterns and practice and learn on. There are 2 free places that I know of that are filled with free patterns. Steve Good has his scrollsawworkshop.blogspot.com. He has a catalog of hundreds of free patterns, and there's also scrollsawvillage.com. All you have to do is register there, but there's hundreds of user-submitted free patterns there. Any other free patterns out there are usually stolen. Even if I'm sort of sidetracking here, but I'm seeing people out there giving away free patterns, even though they were given out free by, like, let's say, Steve Good. I don't think it's morally ethical for somebody else to give that same pattern away free. Does that make any sense to y'all, or am I alone in thinking that?
It makes perfect sense, Charlie.
And I'm finding more and more sites doing that. I don't want to name names because I've talked to them privately trying to get their morals up, but Steve Good has done so much, but if people are just throwing them out there, I mean, yes, they're free, but leave it up to the person who gave it out free originally, and at least just guide people to the site that they're free on, and it just sort of keeps everything aligned morally.
If I may interject just a little something there, Charlie, this is Russ.
All right, go ahead, sir.
We won't even allow people to post patterns on Steve Good's forum that I'm the moderator. I won't even allow people to post patterns that are other people's patterns. I just don't think it's morally correct. For instance, even if Charles Deering was to give away his patterns and have it as a giveaway on Steve Good's show, we won't allow people to post it on there because we don't think it's morally correct. So I'll delete them in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I just recently re-became a moderator on there. Luckily, I haven't run across that, but it breaks my heart. And I know people's hearts are in the right places when they do it. Some of them are just doing it to just gain friends by saying, "Look, I got more free patterns out there." Or I don't know the guy's real name, but he goes by Arpop, A-R-P-O-P. He has a lot of free patterns. I'm not familiar with his site though. Jim Coogan says, I've been thinking of compiling a list of best-in-class resources for scroll sawing for my daughter and granddaughter. It would include video links and other resources. I think with such a knowledge group, we might be able to do something like this, and I agree, Jim. If I can just get 2 of my brain cells to cooperate. Okay, does anybody have anything they want to throw in? Because we still got 25 minutes left in the show, and I don't want it to go downhill.
Charles, we have a question from YouTube if you want me to read it.
Absolutely. Read it real slow so that it lasts longer.
Okay. Laura Meyer, she asks, I watched the segment on vase making with the scroll saw, and I was wondering what kind of sanders you use. Could you make a recommendation?
Well, if she's talking about my vase, I used I want to say it's a Ryobi 24-inch belt sander for the rough sanding, and for the little bitty fine sanding, I had one of those Delta 1-inch by 24-inch belt by 5-inch disc. And I hope that answered her question more specifically. But it's a bunch of sanding, but if it turns out good, then it's worth all the trouble you got to deal with. But thank you for that question, Lori. And Alan Carter wants to know, how do they get patterns from pictures? That goes back to, if you're like me doing it on paper, if you're like Russ and other designers, you do it on a computer. That's kind of a vague question to answer. Does anybody have a better way to answer that? How do you get patterns from pictures?
A Coyote stencil is something that comes to mind. I know people that purchase that, and that's supposed to be capable, able to make patterns from pictures from. Actually, I think Dylan has Coyote stencil. I see him post something about that before, so Dylan might want to chime in and say something about that.
Chime on in, Dylan.
I've only used the program a couple times, and I made one pattern of a Porsche I don't have out here of me and my brother, but it's sort of hard to generate a nice clean pattern from. You have a lot of the pixels, the little squares in the pattern and stuff, but to generate a general pattern, it's pretty simple to do, but it's not as detailed as like Charles or any of those patterns. But yeah, I was going to say also about the pattern stuff. It's not making them, but I saw one video where a guy had a laser printer, and he put the pattern from the paper they printed out in the laser printer and got it transferred to the wood, but without the paper, just the laser ink or whatever. So I've never done that before, but thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's the neat way. It's basically just reheating the toner on the laser, and you would have to print it out in reverse of how you want it to look on the wood, and then you just lay it on the wood. And I think sometimes it can be done chemically, but with laser printer ink, or its toner, and it reheats it, and it takes it from the paper to the wood. Yeah, I got 3 things I got to catch up on in the Q&A section. Charles, you might think about talking more about finding free patterns that aren't copyrighted. For instance, where do you find pictures of celebrities that you make patterns of? Oh, God. Well, and being honest, I don't know if I'm doing that the moral way, because I don't know how to answer that, because I know you can Google copyright-free images, or what's the other term for copyright-free? I'm going blank because I'm
royalty-free.
Royalty-free. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. But yes, those are the 2 ways to look. But yes, morally, I may be breaking the law if I'm looking for a celebrity, but I think I tend to look at what scrollers are looking for in designs. But I try to respect copyrights. And when it comes to a drawing or a painting, I will seek out the artist or photographer, or whatever the case may be. But I'm not always able to do that, so I don't have the right, correct answer for you on that one. But oh crap! I just deleted a question I didn't answer.
I think if you're using royalty-free or copyright-free portraits, the way you do yours, Charles, it's I mean, you're not violating anything because that's what it's there for.
I agree, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you were to use a copyrighted picture and transform that into it, then yes. But if you're using non-copyrighted, non-royalty photos, then there's nothing. I don't see anything wrong with that.
I agree, but I think what he's talking about is like a picture of Elvis. 9 times out of 10 is a picture of a celebrity. Somebody has a copyright on that, and a lot of us designers, I'll only name me because I'm not into pointing fingers, but I think when it comes to celebrities, a lot of us designers just look for a good picture of a celebrity. But it's probably a much harder process to get permission for celebrity photographs than it is for like a painting or drawing from the original artist. But going back to earlier topic ideas, Robert Rickey says favorite blades and opinion on using spiral blades and sanding strips. If any of y'all used, I think we've had the spiral blade discussion before, but we do have some new people in here, so I'll go down the line with both of those. Dustin, have you ever used, what's your favorite blade? Have you ever used spiral blade and/or sanding strips?
No on both the spiral blades and the sanding strips, but the only blades I've used is Flying Dutchman, because Steve Good introduced me to those. I just never had a reason to switch. And then I used reverse tooth, and seems to work good for me. So that's the only type of blade I use also. So.
Good deal. And all I've ever done is spirals, and I always go Flying Dutchman through Mike Morlock at mikesworkshop.com. Hans Bierman, do you have favorite blade, opinion on using spirals, and do you use sanding strips?
Okay, I'm just about, I say 99% spiral user. I rarely ever use a straight blade, as I find them too slow. As far as sanding strips, I don't use the strips that you mount in your saw, but for the fuzzies on the back of your cutting, I burn them off with a little propane torch, and then I use an emery board to sand in between all the cuts.
Alrighty, I appreciate you answering that. If you wouldn't mind muting yourself due to feedback. Okay, we got you unmuted again. Okay, Mr. Mr. John Cousins, do you have a favorite blade, opinion on using spirals, and do you use sanding strips?
Oh, I'm 100% spiral. The blades I use are Polger spiral blades from Germany. As for sanding strips, if I need to, I'll basically just use an emery board in my scroll saw. But very rarely do I ever do that, though. Basically, I just use a palm sander just to get all the fuzzies off the back.
Alrighty, I generally use a palm sander too, but I also use needle files to get the stuff that didn't get. Mr. John Shafter, do you have a favorite blade, opinion on using spirals and sanding strips? I've never used sanding strips, by the way. I just do what John does.
Nor have I. I don't really see a need for them. I think they're kind of gimmicky, but I have rarely used spirals. You've kind of encouraged me to go ahead and give them a try again, but I haven't been out doing any scrolling lately. I'd use a Flying Dutchman's. Normally, I'll use like a number 2 reverse or a number 5 reverse. Because that's what the Flying Dutchman's. I just really like them.
Alrighty, I appreciate it, and that made me think of another topic to go to after we're done with this one, after I read the other things. But Mr. Kelly Kicklighter, do you have a God, I lost it. Do you remember the question?
Yeah, since I'm just getting back into scroll sawing, I'm learning on this question. So, I don't even know what the sanding strips are. So, I'm no help there.
I appreciate it. Sanding strips, I don't recall who sells them, but they're made for putting in your blade clamps upper and lower, and basically it's just a strip that goes up and down like a scroll saw blade, but except it's got sandpaper on both sides. But some people will use, like I believe John Cousins said, an emery board in there if you file it skinny enough to fit into the clamp. I don't see why that wouldn't work. And I swear I'll get back to the rest of the questions after I can get this asked to everybody. And I gotta find the question because okay. Mark Stallings, what is your favorite blade and opinion on using spirals and sanding? Have you used sanding strips?
No, I have not used the sanding strips. I don't have any desire to use them. I've put the blade in there once. I ain't gonna put the sander to it too. But I don't really have a favorite blade because I was using pin blades and I was buying them from the local box store. They were Skill brand. I've got a set of Olsons till my Flying Dutchmans come in that are pinless that I'm using on this new saw. And all I can say is stay away from the Skill blades. I mean, they are so dull compared to these Olsons, or not Olsons, but Bosch. These Bosches are like razor blades, and they've actually got a reverse cut to them. So I'm getting used to the reverse cut while I'm going. So till my Flying Dutchmans come in.
Alrighty, and for those that don't know, Flying Dutchman does not sell pin blades, so if you're looking for pin blades, the best thing for you is a Google. Mr. Russell Clarity, you probably answered this in the past, but what is your favorite blade, in your opinion, on the spiral blade, and do you use sanding strips?
My favorite blade would be Ultra Reverse, a Flying Dutchman. I do use spirals on occasion when I'm doing portraits. It just makes portrait cutting so much easier, but I'm not a fan of them. I find them a little hard to keep in the blade holder, to be honest with you. They work perfect, don't get me wrong. It's just that they're kind of a pain to keep and put in the blade holder. Sanding strips, no, I haven't used sanding strips, and it's interesting. I heard a couple people say something about emery boards. I use emery boards, and I found you can also take and put them on a flat surface with a razor blade knife and cut them down to size, so you can make real skinny ones to get in those little difficult places to put them in.
My God, so that's a cheap alternative to needle files. I tried the sanding strips when they first came out, but they didn't impress me. But knowing me, I probably used them backwards and was trying to sand with the smooth side. I'm kidding. Mr. Sterling Davis, do you have where the heck did it go? Do you have a favorite blade and opinion on using spirals and sanding strips?
Spirals, I'm like Russ on this. I've only used them during portraits. It's not that I find them hard, it's just that I find them different. They are very different than a straight blade. And basically, the blade guides you, the wood don't guide you. As far as the blades I use, I started out with the scroll blades, then I went to Obi, then I went to Bosch, and now I'm on Olson. I hadn't tried Flying Dutchman yet. That's my next step. But the number 5 reverse tooth is the one I use the most. And as far as sanding strips, I'm kind of shocked because I love them. Olson makes them. I've got them here. I use them all the time. A lot of the stuff that I do is boxes or jewelry, small jewelry boxes or stuff like that, to where it's a little bit thicker wood. But these really, I love them. They come in real handy for me.
That was the first blade I tried. I mean, dang, my stupid camera keeps flickering. That brand you held up, but that was the first ones I tried, but I couldn't get the thickness of the plastic to fit into my blade clamps, and I was afraid to file them down because it would make, since they're plastic on the ends. Unless they've upgraded to metal on the ends, I don't know, but...
Yeah, they're still plastic.
Okay. But I could see where somebody could fall in love with them. Now, y'all bear with me, I have a whole slew of questions here. I don't even know what order they came in. And I hope they're not more, that I got to go down the line because show may actually run long when I was afraid.
We also have Charles. We also have a couple of questions. One's a comment and a question for YouTube too. So when you get a chance.
Let's be fair and go to YouTube and give those folks a couple.
The first one comes from Buffalo Ron. He says, "Does anyone have anything to say about Intarsia?"
Okay, I guess I'll answer that first. I think Intarsia is a beautiful form of art. It does involve the scroll saw. I've never done it, but would love to learn it. That's why I wish we could get an Intarsia person on here, and hopefully someday we will. But I'll let other people answer that, and just raise your hand if you want to chime in on Intarsia, and I will unmute, or I will present you to the camera.
I guess I can say just a little something. I've done a little Intarsia, not a whole lot, and the only reason being is because it takes a while for me to do Intarsia, especially I think if you're not proficient at it or haven't done or practiced it a lot, I think it takes a lot of time to do it. And personally, I like projects that I can go in the shop and create in one afternoon, one day. When it starts drawing out where it's 2 or 3 weeks long, I tend to have lose my patience or with it. So, but I've tried Intarsia. It's nice. It does a lot of sanding when you're doing Intarsia.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend I have experience at it, but I know that those what they call mop sanders and contour sanders, they help the process go a little smoother. But I know Mark wanted to comment on that, so I'm going to let you talk, Mr. Mark Stallings.
I can't even say Intarsia.
God. Okay, Russ, did you say you had another YouTube comment or question?
It was a comment. It was from Carl Becker. He said, my best sellers, where we're going back to the other question, it just appeared, even though he's posted like 30 minutes ago. It says, my best sellers were horse ornaments at a horse show. I did well with all horse-related products. I sold 150 or 140 that day.
Wow. That is one of my favorite themes to do because I think a horse is such a beautiful animal. I mean, I don't know how to say that anymore without sounding overly poetic, but I got a bunch of questions I need to catch up on. And hopefully y'all can tolerate the show going a little long, which is ironic because I really thought I was going to have to beg for topics here. Somebody's Dan Ingebret. Why do these people never have last names like Smith? Dan Ingebretson says, okay, I just disappeared off my screen. God bless America. I'll start over because I don't know where it went. I love live stuff. Gary Griffith says you can make your own sanding strips, cut a piece of sandpaper 1/2 inch wide and 5 inches, and it disappeared. Why does this keep happening? Am I getting an overload of questions and they're canceling each other out?
Try clicking on the question you're reading, and it should pop to the top.
I can do that in hindsight, but hopefully, yeah, as I go through. Okay, I'm clicking. It's not helping any. Okay. Donna Presley says, I bought sanding strips about 10 years ago, and I used one once and do not like them. Haven't tried them since. Thank you, Donna. Okay, I'm going to select the next one and hope it stays there. I use spirals and straights. Straight depends on what I am cutting. Portraits I do more with spiral, with challenge to straight on the outside edge, and that makes sense. A straight line is hard to do, and I'm trying to go through these as quick as I can. Dan Engebretson, what is a good outlet for spiral blades? The local box stores don't seem to carry spirals in their limited supply. And Dan, I don't know if you're in the U.S. or not, but it doesn't matter. Mike'sWorkshop.com is the guide to go to for Flying Dutchman. They have flat-ended spiral blades. They have what they call the new spiral blade. I haven't tried that yet, but that is the best place to go. Mike'sWorkshop.com, and he has a page on his site that shows you the different kinds of blades and different kinds of spiral blades. Thank you very much for joining us, Sterling. I'm sorry you couldn't stay, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And hopefully next week I'll be a little more organized. Thank you very much, Sterling. Thank you.
Guys. Good to see y'all.
You too. Okay, I'm going down the line as quick as I can. Yeah, this is where I was before. Gary Griffiths. You can make your own sanding strips. Cut a piece of sandpaper 1/2 inch wide, 5 inches long, fold in half. Put it in the blade clamps with the saw on the slowest speed to start with. I have done this once, but it was a pain having to change the holes like with a blade. Yeah, that I can see how that would be a pain in the butt. And bear with me, folks. I'm trying to go through as quick as I can. How to find photos you can legally use anywhere, and they posted a link. I will have to put that in the description or comment section later. How to find photos you can legally use anywhere. It's a CBS News link, but I will post that at some point. Thank you. I'll leave that up for now. No need to read out loud. Dinner bell. What? Okay. One of the people had to leave. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your input. I have used sanding strips, and they are only useful in few situations. I use jeweler's files, emery boards, and a Dremel. I have most brands of blades, but I stick with Flying Dutchman and just started using the spiral blades. Jim Coogan. Thank you very much. You can't have too many spiral blade users. Okay, what's the best place to order spiral blades? The local Home Depot, HT Supply, blah, blah, blah. Once again, mikesworkshop.com. His email is mike@mikesworkshop.com. The last thing we have is from Mac. When you make a pattern from a picture of a celebrity, would it still be covered by copyright? Isn't an exact copy of their picture as it's changed so much by making it into a scroll saw pattern? That it's a subject that isn't covered much. Even if you change, even though it's not a photograph that you end up with, you still used the original thing as a source, and any good person with a good eye will know where the original source photograph is. We got 3 minutes left in the show. Does anybody want to chime in on any of that stuff I just babbled through? I love it when y'all stay quiet. Okay, Kelly raised his hand. Thank you very much, sir.
Going back to making your own patterns, it's by no means cheap, but I use Corel Draw. It's I got kind of a steep learning curve, but everybody in my business has to use it. So, but just to give you an idea, this is the instruction manual for it.
Wow.
But, yeah, but it's. But I haven't even read it all. But I can get by in it. I can get by in it. It can do some pretty neat stuff. It's got a pretty neat trace. So I can scan a picture in. It's like I have a coloring book. Scan it, trace it, and send it to my laser, and it'll cut it out if I use thin enough wood, like a scroll saw.
That's awesome. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were done.
Yeah,
I know Steve Good and Russ Clarity both use Corel Draw, and I just acquired Corel Draw X7. I have no clue how to use it yet, but I'm working on it. And Jim Coogan says celeb pics are copyrighted and they fiercely protect the use of their image. And that's what I was talking about earlier, so that's where I've been mistaken. Matt says, I'll rewrite my question for you. Is anyone out there a wood turner also? And I know Sterling Davis, which was just here, just got a lathe, but I don't know if he considers himself a wood turner yet. And he would also like to make patterns in his pen blanks with his scroll saw, and is wondering if anyone else has tutorials on something to this matter. I personally don't. Has anybody? Can anybody chime in on that one?
Well, what was the question again?
Oh crap! I deleted it. It was.
Sorry, because I was locked on when you were asking that question before that. It was about wood turning, and I do some wood turning, so I was trying to concentrate on that, and sorry about I lost your train of thought there.
Okay, it's no problem. It's not hard to derail me. I might be able to find it again. I didn't delete it. I just moved it to answer questions. It was from Matt. He says, is anyone out there a wood turner also? I would like to make patterns in my pen blanks with my scroll saw, and I'm wondering if anybody else has tutorials on something into that matter. In other words, have you ever made a pattern in a pen blank with your scroll saw?
No, I've never done that. Yeah, usually pen blanks are, they come with the size of an ink pen, so to speak. They're small pieces of wood. I'm not quite sure where he's going with that as far as using the scroll saw to make pen blanks. If you were going to make a pen blank, I wouldn't use a scroll saw. I would use cut it down to size like on a bandsaw or something like that, because a scroll saw is limited to the thickness that you would cut and doesn't cut very straight lines, not unless you're real good in thick wood. What I'm trying to say is a pen blank is like a square or a rectangle.
Yeah.
So it's very straight. unless you're really proficient at using a scroll saw, most of your lines have a tendency to be wavy. I think it would take too much time to make a pen blank with a scroll saw. I would use another tool in the shop.
Okay, I think what he means is using a pen blank, and I'll get to you just a second, John. Using a pen blank that's already been made. I think he's talking about scrolling designs into it like compound cutting. You know, designs on different sides of the wood. That's probably what it was referring to, and if anybody had any tutorials on that. That's the way I took the question. I haven't done that, but that's not a terrible idea. But I'm going to go to John Schaffner because he raised his hand.
Well, I would kind of go with you is, you know, trying to scroll something into a pen blank is, in my opinion, is virtually impossible. I mean, once you start, if you scroll it in before you start turning, it's going to blow apart on you. I mean, whatever design you're trying to put into the blank. However, they do have available laser inlay kits for different things, you know, all kinds of different designs. You go to like Penn State Industries or Arizona Silhouette or somebody like that. They have the laser inlays meant to do with pen blanks. But as far as scrolling something into your pen blank, I'm afraid that if you do like scroll a name or something into it, and then drill your holes for your tubes and get it on your lathe and everything, once you start turning it, that thing is going to blow apart into a billion pieces. Could be wrong. I've never tried it.
I respectfully disagree because I think if you laid out the right design, because anybody that's done turning knows where to be careful, and the reason why I say there's a guy named Dima, I believe he goes by Demka's Woodworking on YouTube. He uses a kind of pod, and I wish I could remember the name, but it is full of holes. But he can roll all kinds of awesome stuff out of that stuff. So if you look up Demka's Woodworking, it's DIMKA''S Woodworking. He did an ornament, I believe, out of this pod thing.
Right, it's Funky Pod or Banksia Pod or something like that. But those are also very, very hard and they're very stable. There's still a lot of meat to them.
I agree. There again, I think it would depend on the pattern you put into it. If you tried to make it like a really intricate fretwork thing, I could see that falling apart. But being that the piece starts out so big, if you just cut on two sides, I think it's quite doable. I don't know from experience because I don't do lathe turning. But we are over by 4 minutes, so does anybody have, I mean, there's no law saying we have to stop right at an hour, so does anybody have a subject or topic they'd like to discuss before we go off the air?
I sent you a text, Charles, real quick. I had a question for the panel. I'd like to hear from everybody. What is your go-to wood for scrolling? Do you have a particular, like cherry, walnut, or even Baltic birch plywood that you go to constantly or prefer? I know when I make a pattern, I usually test cut to see if it will work before I use it in what I would consider expensive wood. So I cut a lot of my patterns out of just cheap pine that I can get at the box store like Home Depot. I'll cut the test pattern in that if everything seems to be fine, or if it's not, I'll go back and make the changes on the Corel Draw. Then I will cut it into a nice piece of cherry or walnut or mahogany or something like that. But does anybody have a go-to wood they usually mostly or go to most of the time?
Well, me being mainly portraits, like you can see this one behind me, it's Baltic birch plywood. But my favorite wood to cut, if it's not a portrait, is aromatic cedar, because it's soft, it's the beautiful colors in it, and that might be because it's one of the cheaper woods. And I'm going to go down the line and let everybody answer that, but I also noticed Dustin unmuted himself when I asked if anybody had something they wanted to add. So if you want to throw that in after you answer Russ's thing.
Go-to wood, probably birch plywood, but kind from the box store with voids and stuff. But all I get from the sawmill down the road is just maple, walnut, some cherry, and that's about it. But unless I order it in, that's all the wood I use.
Alright, is there something you wanted to ask also? Because I noticed you unmuted when I asked if there was a topic anybody wanted to discuss.
About the turning with pen blank, if you scroll something into it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe inlay something into it. I know inlay is what I like to do, but sort of like a segmented vase or something with you gluing stuff together, you can turn it and it won't blow apart, hopefully. But if you maybe rip the pen blank and then do two sides of inlay and then glue it together, that way the other side of the pen, if you inlay it just once, it will be reversed, but if you glue it together with two separate inlays and then turn it, it will have two-sided whatever, if that makes sense. Like if you something.
Yeah, it made sense to me, but if I had to repeat it, I couldn't because there was a lot to hear there, but it made sense as I was hearing it. Thank you very much. Hans, what is your go-to wood? And God, I got a mess around me. What is your go-to wood? And
I buy the cheapest plywood I can find. I don't really have much of a selection here, as there's no real trees, just palm trees. So they don't make very good wood. The only problem with the cheapest plywood is that there's lots of voids. So I get halfway through a picture or whatever, and then the whole thing blows apart. So but that's the risk you take when you buy cheap plywood.
yeah, Home Depot and Lowe's, and I don't mean to dog them as a business, but they do 99% of their wood is crap when it comes to plywood. Mr. John Cousins, Peter Freitag came in. I'll get to you in just a second, sir. Good to see you again, by the way. John Cousins, what is your go-to wood?
My go-to wood is Baltic birch, but the thing is, like, my supplier that I get it from, everything from 1/8 up to 1.5 inches, I've never had a problem with any voids in it, and I also use a lot of 1/4 inch with the veneer overlay on it too. And because it's easy to cut, it's easy to stain, it's easy to sand and seal and everything else. I've never had a problem with it at all.
Yeah, I think a veneer overlay there's endless possibilities with that because working with the soft of the original wood and then the grain of your veneer of choice. That's a good thing. Mr. John Schaffner, do you have a go-to wood, mister?
Well, I got a comment on what John was just saying about the veneer overlay. That generally speaking is a higher quality lumber rather than what the big box stores sell as underlayment or stuff like that. You pay a little bit more for it for the veneer quality stuff, but it's definitely worth it. There are a lot fewer voids. But my go-to wood, I gotta say, is pallet wood. Basically, 90% of the wood that I use on the scroll saw I get from pallets, and it could be maple, it could be poplar. I've got some walnut, oak, cherry, a few exotics. Pop it through the planer, clean it up, and works for me.
Alrighty, thank you for your feedback. I'm going to go down the line. Dustin does have a question, but I'm going to come back because I got to be fair and go down the line with everybody. Kelly Kicklighter, what is your go-to wood source?
For what I do, it's mostly Baltic birch plywood or basswood. We do some cherry and alder, but I haven't done any of that yet.
And am I assumed to that you choose these woods because of the softness of them and they get better results?
The softness and the uniformity, especially with the alder, it's a nice white uniform. Not a whole lot of variation in the colors.
Okay. Sorry, I had to read something in the chat section. Again, Dustin, I will get back to you, and Peter, I'll respond to you in just a moment. Mark Stallings, what is your go-to wood?
Normally Baltic birch. We had this discussion a few weeks ago, and I have a speaker shop here in town that makes commercial use speakers, and they use a lot of Baltic birch, and they use a CNC machine to cut it out. If you look behind me here, you can see one of the blanks. That's what I get. I cut cut all the useless stuff out of it, and shoot, I end up with pieces this big, and also big enough to make cabinets. So,
Jack Nabbit, well, all that stuff I was saying about you earlier, I was kidding. You're a dang good friend of mine now. And again, Peter and Dustin, I will get to y'all guys, I promise. Russell, did you ever say what your go-to wood was since you came up with it?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Okay, so that's how much I'm paying attention. Peter, you told us that you came in. Basically what we're asking, Peter does not do a lot of scroll sawing. He does mainly wood turning, if I remember right, and he made a game recently. But you probably obviously answer what your favorite wood to use is.
Well, first of all, thank you that I just dropped in here, and you let me on the show here. Well, my favorite wood, I did a little scroll sawing, but my favorite wood for that had been beech plywood, not birch plywood. As the grain is a little more open than on beech, as I saw the interlocking grain of the beech always causes me trouble, and that's the reason why I went for beech. Have to get that right. It's a little bit. I as some of you know, I'm from Germany, and my native language is German, and I have to think English now, so I might get mixed up. Sorry for that.
Oh, it's no problem at all, Peter. And I'm sorry you got here so late. I do have questions piling up in the Q&A section, but Dylan did have a question he wanted. Not Dylan, dang it. Dustin has a question he wanted to ask everybody, and here you go.
MDF, medium density fiberboard, whatever. Where do you usually get it for whatever jig making, scrolling, whatever purposes?
Me personally, I don't get any because I hear bad things about the dust from it. But can anybody else chime in on that? Raise your hand if you can.
I've only found it 3/4 inch sheets at Lowe's. That's the only place I've been to that sells it. But I wanted to make a throat plate for my table saw for the dado, and I've made one out of plywood, but it's still cupped on me and stuff. So
I hear you. Yeah, the only reason I've steered clear of it is because of what I've heard about the particles. John Cousins had a response to your question.
I get all my MDF out of either Home Depot or Windsor Plywood, where I get most of my wood from. Get it every 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1 inch, 1.5 inch.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for answering that. Again, the Q&A section. Matt says, "Thanks, Jim. I am a member of that also. I will have to dig into that site to see where that is." Okay. I got more jumping up again. Matt says, "Jim, I would like to cut patterns out of pen blanks and then pour some resin into the voids." Okay, I think that's what one of y'all was letting on to. Into the voids of where I was cutting, but I'm trying to do some easier scrolling before I start that. Jim Coogan says, "International Association of Pen Turners has a lot of..." I think they're talking to each other in the comment section, because I don't know of Jim being in this room. Alrighty then. Okay, so I'm going to skip that one. I was wondering who Jim was, unless there's a Jim in here I completely forgot about. Yep, they're having a conversation with each other, so... Okay, so that's all of it. Anybody have anything they want to close with before I shut out the show?
I'd like to say something about Dustin's comment about question about MDF.
Can't vote?
Don't use it, don't like it, don't ever intend on using it.
Not that you had that opinion.
My purpose was to make the throat plate for the table saw, and I used plywood, and it just warped on me, so it popped out of the slot for it, so.
What I usually do in a case like that, Dustin, is I will take a thinner type. First off, you get the sanded plywood, which is a lot straighter than the cheaper plywood. And then I would take two, like if I needed 3/4 of an inch, I would take 2 pieces of 3/8 and actually get the best sides of the sanded and glue them together to make the 3/4 of an inch to use that rather than trying to use MDF. I know what you're saying. MDF is very straight and very solid, but it just has so many other problems that I have dealt with throughout the years that I don't use. I've used it a few times and just I don't like it. Don't use it anymore. It's not even in my shop. I don't even have any around here.
Well, I appreciate your comment.
Yeah. Thank you, Russ, and thank you, Dustin, for the question. I think the thinner stock of MDF. Some people use that. Okay, I got a question from John. And John, right before you say that, I did get an apology from Matt. And Matt, I understand you may not have known that the conversation y'all were having behind the scenes shows up on the Q&As. But, life's too short for me to get upset over something little like that. John Schaffner, what did you want to say, sir?
Well, just on the MDF thing for Dustin, I have made the throat plates for my rigid table saw with the MDF. What I ended up doing is I'll take a piece, I'll match it up with the throat plate and kind of rough it out on the bandsaw, and then take a flush trim bit on my router and I'll clean it up and make it so it fits just right. However, the thickness, I started with 1/2 inch. I ended up having to, don't ever do this because it tears up your planer. I ended up running it through the planer, and I made like 5 pro plates all, at the same time, and it just toasted the blades. The stuff is horrid on blades. But you can stand it down, take a while, but I find it fine. I mean, I use it. Like I said, I made 5 at the same time, so I got throat plates for probably the next 10 years.
All righty, Dylan. Dustin, I hope that answered what you were looking for. I've seen people use MDF to build models of houses. So I guess it's just everybody's preference or lack thereof. We still have 25 viewers. I wish I had more topics to go into if y'all could handle me that long.
I'd like to say something real quick, Charlie. It's kind of funny. I said I don't have it and don't use it to Dustin about the MDF.
Yeah.
And it's straight across from me is a set of steel shelves that I had purchased to put stuff on, and guess what the steel shelves have on top of them to hold up the stuff is MDF.
Yeah. I was about to say, Dustin, did you want to chime in and answer on that? See Russ talking before he knew. Well, it's not here, Matt.
And if you ever need any help, Dustin, just get me on Facebook or whatever. I'll talk to you on the forum about. But yeah, I've used MDF and I've just had so many problems with it that I don't like it.
And again, please, I beg you, viewers, if you want to see quality work, quality inlay work done with a scroll saw, please go to Country Scroller on YouTube. I'm begging you. This guy deserves a lot more subscribers than he has. He's too modest to, he says, Chinese kids can do it better than he can, but they don't do it with a scroll saw. And I don't think he gives himself enough credit. But his name is Dylan Connors. I'm proud to know him. Proud that he's so young. So by the time he gets our age, he'll be teaching us stuff. But Dylan, I can't say enough about your inlay work. I love it, and I wish I could grasp it quicker than I did. And I'm looking. You personally are the one that has inspired me to try it. But I encourage everybody to go check out his channel, Country Scroller on YouTube. And if nobody else has any questions or topics they'd like to discuss, then I will say thank you to Dustin Connors. His brother is Dylan Connors. That's why the name shows up. Hans Bierman from Mexico, and I shouldn't have said where he is from because I can't remember where everybody's from. And John Cousins from wherever he's from. He's shaking his head at me. He's like, yep, there's Charlie. John Schaffner from New York. Kelly Kicklighter, Dag Blabbit, I don't remember where he's from either. Thank you for being on the show. Mark Stallings, thank you for being on the show. Peter Freitag, wish you had gotten here sooner. Very, very good to see my German friend again. It's been a while. Russ Clarity from old, relatively warm Florida. Good to see you again. I think maybe Kelly was from Florida. It was either him or John that was from Florida. And I'm from
Both are.
Do what? I didn't hear that, but okay. I'm in Gatesville, Texas, and by God, y'all got a little extra few minutes of us, and I hope y'all appreciated it. And forgive me for any questions I may have missed, because for once I was slammed with them, and that doesn't happen very often. But I'm very glad to see we had that many viewers. Still got 22, so I hate to cut the show off, but I'm running out of brain cells. So the room will still be, to the guys on the panel, the room will stay open, but it will no longer be live. But you all know what I'm going to say. As I say to everybody, hope to see you next week for Season 1, Episode 7. But in the meantime,